It is top of the hour. Let's get rolling, Mr. Conger.
All right. Well, welcome to Tech Talk Tuesday. Episode number 30, another milestone. Nice.
Wow.
Cool.
Episode 30.
So
They just click by, don't they?
they click by here, but sometimes it seems like they drag by with that's like, oh my God.
Very cool. All right. So what do we got on the agenda for the day?
Talking about substation and cloud networking. So specifically connecting substations to a 3200 with cloud network. So
cool. So just to preface that, we have done an episode on wireless two-wire focused on the substation. I believe that episode aired on August 4th.
Oh, nice. Nice reference. Okay.
Because I was out of town for that episode. So I actually watched it yesterday. So this will be a focus on networking the substation, not necessarily the capabilities of the substation or what the substation product is, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think between the two of these, you'll get if you're catching this on YouTube and you've never watched it all, stop this one, go back and watch the first one that the wireless two wire, then catch this one. But for people that are watching it live.
Where would I find it on YouTube?
Baseline Web Training, all one word, no spaces. YouTube, Baseline Web Training.
All right. Excellent.
Cool. Okay.
Very good. And as usual, if you've got any questions in process, please don't hesitate to put it into the chat box or into the Q&A, and I'll be monitoring that. We'll see if we can address your questions as they come up during the episode. But let's see what we have prepared for today.
Okay. So Chris, you already mentioned that we already talked about this on the wireless two wire, but we're really going to drill down on this one. So I'm going to share my screen and show you just a handful of slides that I got. Okay. And we looked at this site before, and a little bit about this site is this site has 11 controllers that need to be updated. Right, so they want to come into the 21st century on new technologies. There's about 140 zones spread over all these different locations. And these are the field wiring on these is conventional wire. And trenching in wire to consolidate zones and to manage flow from multiple water sources is just not realistic, right? You aren't going to, especially this guy down the lower right corner, there's no way to get that in. So that's where the substation comes in, and that's where we're going to. So as a reminder from what we talked about before, three things that I wanted to reiterate is the base station, the substation is a wireless extension of the base station 3200. 8 substations can communicate back to a base station 3200. For a total of 200 zones in whatever that grouping is. So that's the capability of a base station 3200. We can't get past that. So those are some important numbers that we need to remember.
Okay. Yep. And again, on that previous slide there, we're upgrading that and looking to consolidate the number of controller interfaces into a smaller number of programming interfaces through one or a couple of 3200s based on zone count and or water sources that we're being fed from, correct?
Right on. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, because a base station 3200 can handle 8 water sources and just as long as that might be a limit. So we're good on the station count, right? So here we've got 140 zones. That's under 200 zones, so we can make it. But the 11 controllers is a little bit of a challenge. And what's kind of interesting on this site is there actually are some controllers side by side. So here's the hardware interface, the hardware that actually went in. And again, we saw this before. This one, we have a single base station 3200. That's the pedestal up there. And then there's 4 substations out there. And then since the old controller was next to, there were 2 controllers side by side, they were able to do some wiring together. So they used the powered bicoders to bring some of those zones into a substation. So the gist of it is we have 4 substations that we need to communicate back to our base station 3200. Only 4 devices or 5 devices in total that need to be able to communicate and to share information.
Yeah. So for those of you that may be new to this concept, just to reiterate, we took 11 controllers that were pre-existing with all of their own independent programming interface and consolidated them into one programmable interface, being the base station 3200, and then used substations as extensions of the programming capability of the 3200, and then used powered bicoders connected to substations to bring all of those zones in together. Correct?
Right, right. So essentially, wherever you can do a wired connection, it's going to be cheaper, and of course, it's going to be very reliable because there's no communication method. So if we can, anytime we can bring a powered bicoder into our network, into our system, that's going to be super efficient.
Yeah, but very cool. This is a good illustration of the power of a baseline retrofit capability.
Right on.
All right, go on.
So we've got these 5 devices that need to communicate. So now here comes then the communication component, right? So substations can communicate multiple different ways back to a base station 3200. So one of the ways they can communicate is with an Ethernet connection over a local area network. We can communicate over a Wi-Fi network, an Ethernet radio to a gateway. That's another method. And then the one we're going to be talking about today is the cloud networking module, which brings in cell modem and Wi-Fi.
Okay. So if we're talking Ethernet cable, that means you'd have to have a dedicated Ethernet drop, i.e. an Ethernet cable at each controller location.
Right? Absolutely right. So that's not going to be practical, most likely not practical on a retrofit. On a new install?
Looking at this illustration, that doesn't look like it'd be feasible, right?
But a new installation, maybe.
It could, if it was a master plan community.
Yeah.
But in this case, not very likely. So we need another way to connect.
Right. So the Ethernet's going to be out, right? So how about Wi-Fi? How might that work on this one?
Again, having an accessible Wi-Fi access point that would be a common network, not likely. I'm sure each one of those individual houses would have a Wi-Fi available, but we can't do it that way, right?
Right. That's not reliable, right?
And so the HOA, they may have common space Wi-Fi access points, but again, not very likely.
So then the two real viable options on this one would be an Ethernet radio to gateway or cloud networking. So let's pick those apart for a minute. What's the biggest difference between an Ethernet radio and a cloud networking between those two setups?
So with an Ethernet radio configuration, each one of those substations would have an Ethernet radio installed in it, communicating to the base station 3200 location, which would then have a communication module, likely cell modem, that would then get that collection of components to the cloud so you can interface with them with that manager.
So then generally it would be directly device to device, and then one final device getting out to the wide area network. And so those are actually pretty practical.
And it gets used a lot.
Yeah.
And it's pretty reliable, and it can streamline some potential costs associated with doing it in the last format, which is utilizing the cloud network module or cell modem communication to connect all of those devices in the cloud, and then having those visible or connected to App Manager,
right,
to manage and monitor.
So what that cloud network might look like is each single device is going to communicate up to the cloud or connect to the wide area network, and then share that information amongst all of them, right? So this one substation can't talk directly to the 3200, but it can talk to it through the cloud networking component.
Perfect.
So that's right. And the most common method that people are going to be using cloud network is cell modems, right? This site would be cloud network module with using a cell, and then that would just make the setup really easy. And I think that's why I wanted to talk about this today, was that I wanted to show you how easy this is to set up the cloud network. And I think that's probably, would you agree, that's probably the biggest benefit over a radio network, that is the ease of setup?
Yes, absolutely, because you don't need to utilize a radio site survey to qualify the signals between substation and 3200. You're just, installing the cloud network module with a cell modem card installed on it and pumping it up into the cloud, and they're all connecting through a handshake protocol in the cloud and exchanging information with each other.
Right. Okay. Perfect. Well, that's actually a good time where I'm going to share my screen or actually share my camera. So we're going to switch over to my other camera. So there we go. There's my substation right next to me. And
ooh, spooky. You've got spiders on your controller.
I know I need to dust this thing off. Let's turn on an additional light.
This is the unofficial Halloween episode of Tech Talk Tuesday.
It's as close as we're going to get to it, right? Nice. I knew you'd appreciate that one.
Yeah. I got my gargoyle over my shoulder.
Oh, nice. You do. You do.
Riding shotgun with me. So we're very festive today.
So the first thing I want you to notice is this says it's disconnected. So we need to get this connected. So let's open it up. So right now it's on the run button. I'm going to switch over to the setup button, and that opens up a menu here. And the first menu we're going to look at is this is under this network setup, right? So the network setup is where we're going to be doing a lot of our work, because this is really about networking it. So my cell modem or my communication module would be set up in this communication setup. Now, I've already done that, so we're not going to be messing with that. But once that communication once this substation is able to have a communication method, I'm going to move on to my next step, which is base manager setup. So essentially, I've got 2 steps on the substation itself, and then 2 steps back at App Manager. So under base manager setup, I hit OK to open that up. And really all I got to do is say base manager enabled. So right now it is not enabled. I'm going to hit the plus sign. It's enabled. Okay, that's good. I'm going to hit back to get out of that one, and then come down to base manager info and hit OK. And it says right now, it says press OK to disconnect. So it means it's connecting, but that status line right now says registering. So if we give it a moment, what's going to happen, and we'll see how long this takes. Hopefully it's quick enough. It's going to give me a PIN code that I will bring over, and I'm going to record. So,
okay. And just be patient in this process,
right?
So, and sometimes, with the 3200, it needs to get to the top of the minute on its own clock in order to actually facilitate the function. So just be patient. And sometimes a minute can be forever while you're sitting there waiting for it.
In the middle of a webinar, yeah.
Exercise a little patience.
I think while I'm waiting, I think I can go do my next step, and it'll interrupt my next step. So I'm going to hit back. Oh, there it is. See,
hey,
I was impatient. Okay.
Right.
So now what I'm going to do is I need that information. So I'm just going to take a picture of that and hang on to that info, because when I come back to App Manager, I'm going to need that code. Okay. So I'm going to just get out of that one. So the next step that we need to do is come down to the IoT server setup. Okay. And I'm going to hit OK to open that. Now I just need to say, yes, use the IoT server. Hit plus. I'm done with the substation. I'm not going to be doing anything else. I'm going to turn it back to run.
Okay.
So let's come back to me. I'm back. Turn off this light. Okay. Now we can go into App Manager. So let's go take a look at App Manager. I'll share my screen for that one. And Oh, I got to open up a web browser too. I forgot I was going to be doing that today. I think every episode I got to have one thing that I do wrong, and this is one that I did wrong.
You found the one today?
Yeah, I did. Okay, so let's share my web browser. Okay, so we got my web browser, and I'm going to go to baselineapps.net. And this, Andy made a plug the other day for not going directly into Base Manager and going into Baseline Apps, and this is one of them. So I'm going to log in with my saved username and password. I kind of like this splash screen that there's going to be a server maintenance.
Yep.
Okay, so now that I'm in, I'm not going to go into Base Manager. I really don't care about that right now, but I am going to come down to the admin section here. So under admin, I'm going to go to manage substations. So under manage substations, I want to add a substation. Let's move you guys out of the way. So
So before we get too far down this road, let's just reiterate. You'd mentioned logging directly into Base Manager versus logging into App Manager.
Right.
If you don't log in under baselineapps.net and go to App Manager, then you will not have access to these options in a standard basemanager.net login, right? So you've got to come into App Manager in order to go into admin in order to add substations to your 3200 configuration.
And what's nice on that pin code is it said go to baselineapps.net. It gives you the URL. So that it's hard to mistake that, but people could still ignore it if they wanted to.
True. And if you've got, a certain login screen cached on your desktop or your laptop or your tablet, it's going to take you potentially to the wrong screen that you need to be at in order to do this configuration. So make sure you are logged in fresh to a new instance of an App Manager login to do this.
Well put. Okay, so I'm on admin and manage substation. So I don't have any substations, so I'm going to add a substation. And this also takes a moment. Now, when it's ready to add a new substation, it's going to ask for some information. So I'm going to give it we'll just name it test site. Now here's that activation pin that I saved from it. And let's see. It's uppercase and lowercase, and we'll see if we get it right.
Yeah. So is it case sensitive?
It is.
Okay. All right. So you need to pay attention to that. So if you write it down, make sure that you write it. Like me, I write in all capitals all the time.
Yeah.
Right. So I've got to if I write that down, I have to make my capitals even bigger than my normal capitals in order to make it case sensitive.
So you've got a lowercase capital and an uppercase capital?
Yeah. Yeah. Because my amps go to 11.
Makes perfect sense. Okay. And the site that I'm going to set it to, because I only have 2 sites set up in my training controller, and then you can add other information. So I'm going to just skip this for right now. Let's see if we can. Okay, there we go. So I've got that information. Now I can add it. Okay, I've added a substation. Great. Well, it's not quite connected, right? So, but that pin code is now basically means that this substation is associated with my account, and we know how this is mine. That's the pin is very specific me. Okay. So now the next one is I need to go back to admin. Now I need to manage base station 3200s. Now here I've got a whole bunch of them, so I need to find the right one. So this is why naming them makes a big difference. Mm-hmm. And if all else fails, you can get the serial number. And if that doesn't work, you can get the MAC address, which is absolutely unique to them. Okay. So in the base station 3200, I need to go to edit first. And I'm going to scroll down. and find my 3200 managed substations. There are none as far as my controller is concerned. So now I can select a substation. There's the one we just did, the one that I called test site. And I want it to connect with the IoT server. So with the cloud server, I'm going to select that and save. Okay, let it save. I'm done.
Oh, error occurred.
Oh my goodness, what did I do wrong?
I don't know. What did you do wrong, Dan?
Interesting. What's really let's double check and see what happened there. Because what's interesting, why did that? Okay, that is interesting. Let's stop.
Technology's cool if it works.
Well, yeah, there's another one of those. Like that's not supposed to. Okay, let's get out of my stop my screen share. Interesting. So that's I think it farted because look at this. Check this out. I'm connected now.
Interesting.
Yeah. So the big thing that we're looking for here is my substation, does it say connected? And this does say connected. So now this is connected. That was kind of funny. I was a little worried that my 3200 was offline and it was in fact fine. So that's a little ghost in the machine, I think. But now that my substation says connected, I have complete access to this through my base station 3200. That's the most important thing. Now there's nothing else we're going to do at the substation. It's all done at the base station 3200.
Okay. All right. And then we can go through and do our normal configuration process that we would as if those were normal 2-wire devices, right? With a search and assign. Because it is a normal 2-wire device. It's just that wireless 2-wire we're sending 2-wire over a network connection. That's it. Yeah. Okay. So 3 steps at the substation itself, correct?
Right.
And then 3 steps at app manager level. Where
2.5.
2.5,
yeah,
round to 3. So you're adding the substation in admin within App Manager. Then you are going to your manage base station 3200, adding the substation there as well.
Right.
And then having it connect, and then going forward and doing your normal program.
Right.
Yep.
What I really like about this method is if I do the 2 things at the substation while I'm out in the field, I don't have to go back to it again. And the reality is, I remember I had a customer tell me one time, he says, I don't know where my substation is. Like, it kind of scared me. I'm like, you don't know? He says, I know I don't care. Well, because he doesn't need to go out to it. The only reason he would go to his substation is to do wire work. If he does everything through Base Manager or at his 3200, there's no reason to go out to visit it. And
you'd want to know where it is so you can program it correctly with the proper
initially
and all that, right?
Initially,
yeah.
But I think that is, knowing that you if you just do once you get this to network and communicate, there's very little you need to do there, and actually it's all done through the base station 3200.
Okay, very good. So just to reiterate, what we've talked about today is connecting those substations and 3200s together in a network, whether through a wired LAN, which would be with Ethernet connections, right? Physical cables at the controller locations.
If that's available, right?
Through the cloud, utilizing Cell, essentially.
Right.
And doing that process in order to get those devices connected and communicating with each other. Okay, right. So a relevant question that came in, what about security protocol with cell modems? Ooh. Any risk there?
We've got the same security protocols on every step through that process. We have the same security protocols from our server to our controller, from our substation or from a flow station and the cell modem, the same security protocols.
Yep. So no matter anytime we're communicating wirelessly through these communication modules, we've got 256-bit encryption that is at the highest level encryption available to us in market currently. And then it's also wrapped with another wrapper on it that makes it even more secure than that. So yes, we've had very good experience with our security protocol, and it's acceptable by even the highest security level protocols with IT departments. Another question, how will 5G be helpful linking up baseline systems as they come into play?
Interesting. I have some thoughts on that, but you probably have the more the official line. What?
Yeah. So what we're utilizing is 4G LTE. LTE is long-term evolution. So with data transfer, 4G LTE is going to be a suitable protocol for the foreseeable future. 5G is being implemented to increase the speed of like video data, which is far more bandwidth requirement than what we're utilizing. So we'll be able to utilize the 5G towers with the 4G LTE data component and have reliable communication in that space for foreseeable future number of years. Their commitment to 4G LTE is out 10 years or more.
And where I'm glad you did that, because I was about to go nerdy, which is okay. But I think in 10 years, when 5G is more rolled out like they could be, that could change the way that we move information around. It could change the way we network devices. My microphone might have a 5G network in it rather than a wired connection. But that's like 3 beers into a conversation.
Yeah, 5G is intended to add towers to increase bandwidth in a given geographical area so that we can have more data and more video and all of that streaming.
More connected devices, yeah.
Across more connected devices, make it faster.
Right.
And then the last question is, when utilizing App Manager, what browsers should be utilized?
Actually, we're using all the major browsers. I'm trying to think if there's any that I'm aware that don't work. But so I know I use Edge, I use Firefox, which I was using today, Chrome. I use Safari.
Yep. So we're compatible with all browsers, but the one that is consistently less reliable is Microsoft. So we really recommend using Google, Firefox, or Safari.
Okay. Good.
All right. Perfect. Well, we've come up on our hour. We've answered questions that have come in. What do we got on store for next week?
We talk about start conditions. So we often think that a controller is going to start because it's 7 p.m. or that it's on a Tuesday. Well, there's other reasons why you might start a program. And so we're going to talk about different start conditions. Time is a start condition, but we're going to talk about, time, moisture, temperature, pressure, all these other lots of different options on reasons that you could start programs. And
some unique cases associated with using baseline technology to facilitate that. Awesome. All right. Look forward to that. And everybody, we appreciate your participation as usual. Thank you for taking 30 minutes and logging in to participate in Tech Talk Tuesday. We'll be here next Tuesday, same place, same time.
Right on.
Go out and have a great week. Be safe, save some water, and enjoy blowout for those of you that are blowing out. And we will come back around next Tuesday.
All right. Have a great one.
Thanks, everybody. See ya.